This is the Bentley Residences, a 61-story, $630 million tower and the world's first Bentley-branded skyscraper. But before the tower is even finished, satellite data says the ground beneath it is already sinking. Bentley sells the name. You inherit the risk. How does a 61-story tower get approved on a strip of sand barely a quarter-mile wide? Is this the first time a luxury tower like this has run into trouble on this exact coastline? Why does the same family keep building the same kind of tower here decade after decade? If Bentley's name is on the building, who's actually responsible when something goes wrong? To understand what went wrong here, you need to know how this tower came to exist in the first place. At 18,401 Collins Avenue in Sunny Isles Beach, a 5-story motel called the Dezer Hotel by Wyndham had occupied the site since 1956. Dezer Development, a Miami-based luxury real estate developer, had owned the land since 1996, purchased for $6.8 million. It sat there for years, collecting room night revenue while the towers around it climbed higher. Dezer already had proof a different model worked better. A few blocks south, his Porsche-designed tower had opened in 2016. He invented a patented car elevator that lifted residents and their vehicles directly to a private in-unit garage, attached the Porsche name to the building, and priced accordingly. It sold out completely and became one of the most recognized addresses on the Florida coastline. That changed in April of 2021. Dezer announced a partnership with Bentley Motors, the British luxury car maker, to build something that had never existed anywhere on Earth. A tower of about 61 stories, 749 feet tall, the tallest residential building on any US beachfront. Under the deal, Bentley would license its name and send a design team. Dezer would build, finance, and sell every unit himself. The old motel came down in 2023. Construction broke ground in early 2024. The design called for 216 units each, with a private garage accessible via an upgraded Dezer, now engineered with Otis Elevator Company, the firm behind elevator systems in some of the world's tallest buildings. The diamond-patterned glass facade was designed to mirror the sun and the ocean. The interiors, curated by Bentley's own design team, would include a restaurant from Todd English, a chef who has won multiple James Beard Awards, the food industry's highest honor. A whiskey bar, a cigar lounge, a private cinema modeled after a Bentley interior. Sales opened in early 2022. By the time Dezer secured a $630 million construction loan from Madison Realty Capital, a New York-based real estate lender, in late 2025, more than half the units had already been pre-sold, totaling over $550 million in sales, according to the company's own figures. 2 penthouses listed at $37.5 million each. Remaining units starting around $5.8 million. Buyers signed contracts and paid large deposits on a building that did not exist yet. The completion date shifted 3 times, first 2026, then 2027, then 2028. That is 6 years from the opening of the sales gallery to anticipated completion. Buyers were told that owning a Bentley residence meant owning the same standard of precision the brand had built its reputation on for 100 years. That was the plan, but this is what has been happening beneath that plan. Here's what that partnership actually meant on paper. Bentley Motors did not design the foundation, did not pour the concrete, did not inspect a single structural connection. Their agreement with Dezer is a licensing deal, a name, a logo, a design team for the lobby. Their published terms are explicit. They accept no liability for any loss or damage, however caused. Buyers pay 20 to 35% more for a branded unit than an unbranded one. That premium is the entire transaction. The brand collects the markup. The buyer absorbs everything else. And here's what that license didn't protect against.
Proud to say we perfected it for our second go-around here at the Bentley Residences. They love everything that Bentley has to offer and to show, and the quality, the fit and finish of what these cars are.
The ground beneath Bentley Residences is not bedrock. It is a lithic limestone porous rock riddled with channels seawater has moved through for millions of years, topped by layers of loose compressible sand. In December of 2024, researchers from the University of Miami found 35 coastal buildings from Miami Beach to Sunny Isles Beach, experiencing measurable subsidence generally between 3/4 of an inch and 3 inches from 2016 to 2023. That sold-out Porsche design tower, the one that proved Dezer's formula worked, has sunk nearly 4 inches since it opened. The Bentley site itself, even before the tower was finished, had already registered 1.5 inches of ground displacement measured by satellite. Huta Gangarao, an engineering professor at West Virginia University, told the Miami Herald differential subsidence would be very, very serious. He explained that if the sinking happens unevenly across a single building, it shows up first as cracked walls, doors that stop closing, windows that stick, in a tower whose signature feature is a car elevator built to deliver residents to their door without a single bump. Antonio Nani, a professor of civil and architectural engineering at the University of Miami, who co-authored the study, said monitoring should not be optional. Falk Amelung, the study's lead geophysicist at the University of Miami, said almost all the buildings at the coast itself, they're subsiding. He called the findings surprising even to his own team. This was not new information for Dezer Development.
At a rate averaged something like 0.5 centimeters, but of course over a long time it's going to be significant. So we saw the subsidence happening in particular at the high rises. Some of these 35 buildings.
In 2013, during construction of the Porsche design tower, just blocks away a 34-story residential building called the Millennium Sud Dezer Development. Sir, the Millennium sits directly next to the Porsche tower site on Collins Avenue in Sunny Isles Beach, and its owners alleged that foundation drilling had caused massive cracks in the lobby parking garage and pool deck. That was 11 years before the University of Miami published its satellite data. The ground was already signaling. The building next door was already cracking. Dezer broke ground on Bentley Tower anyway. No disclosure law in Florida requires a developer to tell a buyer that the ground under a building has already been measured moving before they sign. If the building settles unevenly, if the walls start cracking, if the doors stop closing in 20 years, the buyers will have a claim against Dezer Development. Not against Bentley. Bentley makes cars. And this isn't the first warning this coastline has given. 35 miles south of Sunny Isles, in June of 2021, a 12-story building called Champlain Towers South partially collapsed at 1:22 a.m. 98 people died. It remains the deadliest structural failure in US history outside of war or natural disaster. The National Institute of Standards and Technology, the federal agency that investigates major building failures, spent 5 years on the case. Their conclusion: the building's original construction margins were too narrow from the start, and decades of water infiltration corroded the steel inside it. An engineer had documented the damage 3 years before the collapse. Florida law at the time required inspections only once every 40 years, and condo owners voted down the repair costs. Nothing was fixed. The building fell. Here is the part that connects directly back to what the University of Miami found on this coastline when scientists checked their satellite data for Champlain Towers South. Before the collapse, they found no sinking at all. The ground was not the cause. The cause was decisions made over decades by people who were never required to fix what they already knew was broken. Subsidence is one risk. Ignored maintenance is another. On Florida's coastline, both are in play at the same time. Since then, Florida has required older buildings to fund full reserve accounts for structural repairs assessments that can run $50,000 to $150,000 per unit. Owners who cannot pay are forced to sell. Developers buy the buildings, demolish them, and start over on the same ground with new towers exempt from the inspection rules that just cleared the land for them. Then the pattern started repeating. The same formula reached other towers. The Aston Martin Residences opened in downtown Miami in 2024. By early 2026, the condo association sued the developer German Koto, alleging he siphoned millions from the building's funds through contracts to vendors with close ties to him. David Haber, the attorney representing the association, called it brazen self-dealing. Weeks later, the same association filed a second lawsuit over alleged construction defects, naming the developer the general contractor and more than a dozen subcontractors. Aston Martin itself was named in neither suit. It had already collected its licensing fees. Across the bay in Brickell, the developer behind Mercedes-Benz Place's Dezer Development Group defaulted on a loan in early 2025. By spring 2026, the new lender filed suit to seize the property through foreclosure, while roughly 10% of buyers asked to exit their contracts. Mercedes-Benz was not a party to that lawsuit either. Sebastian Garcia, a real estate advisor at Compass, put it plainly in an interview with Florida International University: "When consumers hear Mercedes-Benz or Porsche, they think quality, even though it has nothing to do with the construction of a building. And here's why the formula never stops." Gil Dezer's family has run this formula for 40 years. His father, Michael Dezer, began buying oceanfront land here in the 1980s and later partnered with Donald Trump on 6 towers along this same strip. Gil's Porsche-designed tower, according to sworn testimony Michael Dezer gave in a 2020 civil trial, generated $344.9 million in profit, a figure he said under oath could be even higher. Bentley was simply the next name available, and the formula barely changed build. Fast sell, faster attach a famous name, move to the next site before anyone checks what the last site did to the ground around it. That gap didn't close itself. It came from people who paid full price for a name on a building, not for what holds the building up. And all of it traces back to one decision. One licensing clause erased Bentley's liability for $630 million. And it's happening again right now. This wasn't one bad developer. It was a system that lets a famous name stand in for an engineering guarantee, and nobody who made this decision is being asked to justify it. Would a buyer who saw the satellite data still sign the contract anyway? Or would they walk away and ask first who actually inspects the foundation? The comments are open. The same brand license model is running right now in New York, Los Angeles, and at least a dozen other cities across the US. A hotel brand here, a fashion house there, an automotive name on the next block. None of them are responsible for the foundation. None of them are named in the lawsuits when things go wrong. As of this month, Bentley Residences has reached its 7th floor, kept selling units, and kept marketing itself as beachfront luxury without pause. You just don't know which one is next. The project you just watched took years to fail publicly. The next one on this channel took longer and cost more. Subscribe, because by the time it makes the news, it's already too late. Comments are open. Name your city.